feeling the history, seeing the enormous ceiling and the beautiful organ is, you can't get that from a picture.
And being there and being able to experience the people that had been standing there before me was amazing. It's a feeling that is like no other.
I enjoyed going through Luther's house and being able to learn more about him. Just seeing the challenges he went through and the fact that he was just an ordinary guy really struck me. He wasn't really well known, no one really knew him, and he wasn't even that religious to begin with, and now it's a common name in the common Lutheran household. What inspired me was that you don't have to be someone to accomplish something. Innovation happens when you're most vulnerable and when you do have a lot of passion for it. It doesn't happen just because someone says, oh, this needs to be changed. It takes a lot of thought and a lot of process and a lot of trial and error to have innovation happen. I plan to be more vulnerable and being able to say, this is what I'm feeling and this is how I'm going to show it. And that's through my music and through playing piano or playing my violin.
It sounds strange, but the highlights of that day was actually looking at his study, looking at where he worked, and then probably toiled over his work. There is a part of one of his journal entries where he was talking about the difference between Leipzig and Berlin. And in Berlin, people were doing big things. And he said that Leipzig was a place where people hid in their homes. But he said the things in Berlin won't last, but the things in Leipzig actually would. And that was very inspiring because they did. Innovation is doing what you feel called to do. Innovation's when someone says you should quit and you don't quit and you keep doing it over and over and over again. Innovation is devotion. The extraordinary happens within the ordinary. You don't just make extraordinary. You be yourself. The thing that will change the way that I make music the rest of my life is this reminder that all the greats, they're just people too. And I'm a person too, so it's to be myself.
This church has its own unique history, and before we went to the prayer service where it was filled, but when it was just empty, we walked in the doors and started reading about the peace protests and just feeling the history is, you can't get that from a picture. The experience at the Nikolaikirche really inspired me to commit to a peaceful solution for any number of conflicts, and it just takes a strong perseverance. I think church music, which is my particular focus, can mean so much more to like a present-day audience. The social justice and the using music as a vehicle for pushing that message, whatever the message may be, pushing that message forward is what I want to do with the rest of my life.
Sitting in Thomaskirche, and the first few notes that came from the choir were spectacular. It was something I'd never heard before. A live choir singing the music that was composed in that room was unbelievable. I was also inspired by the space itself. I sat in that church and I felt the music coming from the walls, and I felt like I could sit there and really experience God. I learned that innovation has a lot to do with what you're surrounded by and the opportunities that you're given by other people. Innovation is a product of its environment. I've learned to value music in general more, because through this trip I saw that it's important and that it's valued. In Germany, in Leipzig and in Berlin, they value community and they value humanity in the long term, and that's changed me. That's made me want to create, because I know that my creations are worth something that will be remembered.
It was really difficult, and it's always difficult to think about the Holocaust as just an event. It's a very distant thing that happened in history, and it's hard to wrap your mind around, but when you walk into a building and somewhere that is specifically designed to take you there, that's all you feel. You get to experience their fear, you get to experience their anger and their rage, you get to experience the hate that they felt, you get to experience the embarrassment, and experiencing the Holocaust Museum really encapsulated all of those feelings and those ideas and those thoughts for me. What most inspired me was the poetry that I read, and I think it was the second room that I entered. There were lit up screens on the floor that you could walk around, and there were little snippets of people's thoughts and people's worries and their letters and their poems to people. And the poems really touched me the most, because in the midst of everything that they were going through, everything they were worrying about, and all of the people that they were worrying about, they still found time to be creative. And that just shocks me. How can you be so afraid of not being able to live another day, but you have time to sit and write a poem? I guess that was the most inspiring for me, because we make excuses every day of why we can't be creative, and this person wasn't making any excuses. They didn't have any more time. There's a lot in history that we know about and that we don't oftentimes utilize. Those two are the biggest takeaways for the whole trip about innovation for me, because you can't go through the feelings that other people had when you're confronted by those images and those poems and those words and feel nothing. You have to feel something, and in doing so, you have to share that with people, because that's feeling history, that's feeling people that that's feeling something for people that you didn't know existed a week ago. You had no idea who they were, what they looked like, or what their names were, and that's powerful. That's what innovation and music is about.